Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Palmichal Yellow Honey Processed Costa Rica from Farmhand. And there's the bag right there. And Farmhand, based out of Dublin, Ireland, and this coffee right here was featured in our most recent blind taste test rankings video as part of the Right Roast's February subscription box, where it finished 3rd place out of 4 coffees on that day. And going into that video, Farmhand was the biggest wild card, as I had tried coffees from every other one of those coffee roasters on that table before that video, but Farmhand is the one coffee roaster that I had never even heard of when I made this purchase. It's always kind of funny because I did spend about a week in Dublin back in 2020. I've reviewed a number of Calendar's coffees on this channel, and I've been drinking 3FE's coffees for a number of years as well. So it's always kind of interesting when there's a coffee roaster from a place like Ireland that I've never heard of, and I can kind of compare and contrast it to what I am a little bit more familiar with. So looking forward to discussing this coffee. This right here is day 26 of this coffee. And as mentioned before, these are 50-gram bags, so this should be a shorter review, and the Right Roast does have a recipe for all of these coffees, and I really liked this recipe. So it was a 17.2 to 1 water to coffee ratio, brewed at 94 degrees Celsius, and that included a 10-gram bypass at the end. And I liked this coffee better through the Chemex, so I'll go with Chemex, which indicates a more medium grind for this coffee. And I was surprised at how light this was. This is a lot lighter than most of the other Irish coffees that I've had before, so we'll go with a European light for the roast profile. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. Day 18, first impression, and I'll say that it was an exceptionally well-balanced cup of coffee, if not maybe just a little bit clean and neutral, especially relative to a lot of the other cups of coffee on that table. And I feel like maybe this had been to the fact that it just doesn't necessarily accentuate any specific flavors off of a first impression as much as something like maybe the Red Bank coffee or the Mateo coffee did, as this one right here was just a little bit more well-balanced in that sense. Wasn't able to pull out too much from this cup of coffee. There was a slight underlying fruit sweetness, but nothing too overly distinct, and I said, okay, maybe just a couple of adjustments here and there, and we'll see what we get from this cup of coffee. Day 21 was already a significant improvement and first time brewed with a Chemex, and we'll say that it maintains a lot of its clarity while seeing an overall increase in the sweetness. It was most reminiscent of an extremely well done Colombian coffee for me, as it had this really kind of nice, pleasant chocolate base, but at the same time you were getting these kind of subtle fruits that were coming out towards the end, and there was still, again, nothing too overly distinct, with maybe the exception of an apple acidity that I was getting from the cup of coffee. But I felt, given just how much of an improvement there was from this day, that there was a lot of potential in this cup of coffee. And I was saying that once again on day 24, as this was by far the best day of the coffee to this point. This time it was brewed with Farmhand's recipe, which I already said I really liked, and I think it does the best of bringing out a lot of the best qualities of this cup of coffee, as once again, it really kind of exploded with some zesty fruit finish in the cup, and a lot of tropical fruits just in general. So it's going to be why maybe the apple and the tropical fruit combination does chart relatively high on the tasting wheel. But in addition to that, there was a pretty heavy floral-like chocolate bar component to this cup of coffee as well. I was thinking a fair bit of honey, too. And there had a lot of depth in this cup of coffee just in general. And here I am drinking on day 26, and it is by far the best this cup of coffee has been. And even now it has some wonderful candy sweetness to it. I think they have a butterscotch note listed on here, which makes so much sense because as this coffee has really cooled down, you've seen a lot of the sweetness really exploding. I was getting a number of characteristics to it as well. I think they have so many tropical fruits listed on here, but yeah, the apple definitely present. The honey I'm getting quite a bit of at the warmer temperatures, but now just a lot of wonderful brown candy sweetness as the cup has cooled down. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And I did look at this tasting wheel beforehand, and I will say that I disagree with so much of it because this coffee has changed so much from when I charted on day 24 to now on day 26, because this coffee continues to improve. But I'll do my best to kind of run through this tasting wheel, as we have a number of level 4s. The cleanliness at a level 4, that hasn't changed. That's justified, maybe even on the higher side of the level 4. This is probably the cleanest cup of coffee out of those 4 coffees that we're reviewing, so definitely justified there, if maybe not a little higher. Florals, level 4, that part also hasn't changed, as I can't help but feel that the floral honey is a very pronounced characteristic to this cup of coffee. I really like the florals that are coming from it. I'm a big fan of florals in coffee, so that definitely justifies that level 4 mark. As far as the citrus fruit goes, I will say that a lot of these tropicals and the apple acidity has been toned down ever so slightly in the Chemex, which is why I would probably chart that a little lower, and as a result maybe chart the stone fruit a little lower as a result, as those very so slight stone fruit characteristics I'm getting from this cup of coffee aren't anywhere near as pronounced as the citrus characteristics, so it's just some adjustments there. Maybe bump up the chocolates to a level 4, but I think I really like it at level 3. It's that caramel that I would definitely bump up almost to a level 4 actually, because the sweetness, this kind of brown candy sweetness that's in the finish, I like to lump the caramel in with the butterscotch in terms of this tasting note, and yeah, it's definitely there. So you could say brown candy, maybe a little generous at 4, but I would be happy with it at a 4, but probably most closely lined with a 3. Maybe the most pronounced characteristic, I think it has to be that 4. I'm waffling back and forth on this tasting wheel that I don't think looks great to begin with, but I would probably push that up to a 4 because I can feel it. I can still taste this after I'd taken that sip. So that caramel, that brown candy-like finish in this cup of coffee is really nice. So for those factors, I would probably even bump up the sweetness and the finish to a level 4 as well. So this tasting wheel would look so much different if I was charting it today with this brew method for this coffee. So I don't necessarily like the way that this tasting wheel looks. I think it's trending in the right direction, as I think this coffee is trending in the right direction to begin with. My overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee, this one has by far improved the most since the first time I tried it. As it initially felt like maybe a little bit tame and underwhelming, this cup of coffee, especially with the adjustments I've made from Farmhand's suggestions, has really improved dramatically. And I would say that it's one of the best Costa Ricans. I think I like it maybe the best out of those 4 coffees at this point, and it is maybe now my favorite Costa Rican that I've had a number of years. It doesn't really taste like a Costa Rican, which I will say is a positive thing. It doesn't have too many of those red fruit characteristics, but it has so much wonderful sweetness, and I adore sweetness. Sweetness, clarity, florals, it has all of those, some wonderful fruits too. It says everything I really like about a cup of coffee. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. I think if you've really liked Calendar's coffees in the past, I think that this is a great comparison as well. If not, maybe a little sweeter. I really like Calendar's coffees and I really love sweetness, so having those two things kind of combine into this coffee right here has been a huge selling point for me on it. I think it's really, really nice. I think for the most part, I'll leave this review at that. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee or anything from Farmhand, I'd love to hear your thoughts and impressions of it or them as well. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Palmichal Yellow Honey Processed Costa Rica from Farmhand. Thank you for watching.